The Quiet Revolution: How Black Women Are Redefining Success Through Softness and Sovereignty. When the headlines tell one story, but lived experience reveals another, that's where true wisdom emerges. I recently had the extraordinary privilege of interviewing Cecilia Holmes, a visionary whose work at the intersection of economic justice, entrepreneurship, and healing centered leadership has transformed how we understand Black women's professional journeys in America. Cecilia is not just a researcher or thought leader, she is a revolutionary architect designing new pathways to freedom. Her groundbreaking work has illuminated the invisible structures that have constrained Black women's professional advancement for generations, while simultaneously revealing the profound power that emerges when we embrace our authentic selves. Through her Healing Justice Collective and economic empowerment initiatives, she has directly impacted over 10,000 Black women professionals, helping them reclaim both their economic power and their spiritual wholeness. What struck me most about my conversation with Cecilia wasn't just her brilliant analysis of systemic barriers, but her revolutionary approach to overcoming them, embracing radical softness as strategy, not weakness. Today, I want to share the profound insights from that conversation because what Cecilia Holmes has uncovered challenges everything we think we know about progress, power, and possibility for Black women in the workforce. We've all heard the narrative that professional advancement is straightforward: work hard, climb the ladder, break the glass ceiling. But Cecilia Holmes revealed a far more complex reality that demands our attention. In April 2025, something remarkable happened that barely made headlines. While the US economy celebrated adding 175,000 jobs nationwide, Black women lost a staggering 106,000 positions, the largest drop among any demographic group. Let that sink in for a moment. During a period of supposed economic growth, an entire community of professionals experienced what can only be described as a silent recession. This wasn't a statistical anomaly. It was evidence of what Cecilia Holmes calls the invisible architecture of exclusion: structural barriers that persist regardless of positive economic indicators elsewhere. Black women's unemployment jumped from 5.1% to 6.1% in a single month, while the national narrative celebrated recovery. Why did this happen? The data reveals a perfect storm: declining federal employment opportunities, historically a source of stability for Black professionals, facing discrimination in private sectors, combined with widespread corporate rollbacks of diversity initiatives. These weren't just market forces at work, they were policy decisions with disproportionate consequences. As Cecilia explained during our interview, when we mistake systemic challenges for individual shortcomings, we misdiagnose the problem and prescribe the wrong medicine. The April 2025 employment crisis wasn't about Black women's qualifications or work ethic. It was about vulnerable safety nets and institutional retreat from equity commitments. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn and where Cecilia Holmes' insights become truly revolutionary. Despite these formidable headwinds, Black women owned businesses saw average revenue growth of 32.7% between 2019 and 2023, outpacing many other demographic groups. This remarkable achievement didn't happen by accident. It emerged from what Cecilia calls ancestral innovation: the ability to transform obstacles into opportunities, to create abundance where systems designed exclusion. These entrepreneurs navigated not just pandemic disruptions, but persistent capital access gaps and biases against minority owned enterprises. Their success wasn't about grinding harder in a broken system. Instead, they pioneered different approaches entirely, leveraging digital transformation, building powerful networks through affinity business groups, and centering community in their business models. I spoke with Tanya, one of the entrepreneurs in Cecilia's research. After being passed over for promotion 3 times, despite outperforming her colleagues, she launched her own digital marketing firm. I didn't just want a seat at the table, she told me. I realized I needed to build my own table one with room for everyone who looks like me. Within 2 years, her company was generating 7 figures. But what made her most proud wasn't the revenue. It was creating a workplace where Black women could bring their full selves to work. We don't just tolerate our culture here, she said. We celebrate it as our competitive advantage. This entrepreneurial surge represents more than economic resilience. It signals a profound shift in how leadership itself is being redefined. These business owners aren't succeeding despite their identities as Black women. They're succeeding because they're bringing their full, authentic selves to their work, including cultural wisdom, often devalued in traditional corporate settings. When we talk about Black women's professional journeys, Cecilia emphasized in our conversation, we must recognize that entrepreneurship isn't just planned to when corporate America fails us. For many, it's a deliberate choice to create spaces where our brilliance doesn't require dimming our light. But entrepreneurship alone can't solve systemic inequities. Cecilia Holmes' research also examined what happened when major corporations scaled back diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in recent years. The impact was immediate and measurable: decreased advancement opportunities, specifically affecting mid career Black female professionals. The loss of mentorship pipelines previously established through DEI offices left many without clear paths forward inside large organizations. Yet, even here, adaptation and innovation emerged. Some professionals pivoted toward external coaching and consulting roles, transforming their lived expertise into highly valued assets outside traditional corporate structures. Cecilia introduced me to Maya, who had spent 15 years in corporate America before the DEI rollbacks eliminated her department. Rather than seeking another corporate position, she launched a leadership development collective specifically for Black women in tech. What looked like a setback became my liberation, Maya explained. I'm now supporting dozens of women through the very challenges I faced, creating the mentorship I wish I'd had. New collectives centered around peer led professional development emerged to fill institutional voids. Former corporate leaders launched platforms dedicated entirely to supporting underrepresented talent across industries. As Cecilia observed, these rollbacks represented both disruption and invitation, an invitation to create self determined models of leadership development, no longer dependent on institutional goodwill. This brings us to what I believe is the most profound insight from my conversation with Cecilia Holmes: the power of what she calls radical softness as professional strategy. For generations, Black women in professional settings have been told explicitly and implicitly that survival requires armored perfectionism, code switching, emotional restraint. The message has been clear: to succeed, you must be twice as good while showing half as much emotion. But Cecilia Holmes's research reveals a counterintuitive truth. The most sustainable success comes not from hardening ourselves against systems of exclusion, but from claiming the revolutionary power of softness, vulnerability, and authenticity. Radical softness, Cecilia explained, isn't about being passive or accommodating. It's about refusing to internalize harmful systems by maintaining connection to your whole self, your joy, your boundaries, your cultural wisdom, your need for rest. This approach isn't just personally healing, it's strategically powerful. The entrepreneurs who experienced the greatest growth were those who centered not just profit, but purpose and well being. The professionals who found new pathways after DEI rollbacks were those who trusted their intuition about when to pivot rather than persisting in toxic environments. As one executive told Cecilia, I spent years thinking success meant never letting them see me sweat. Now I understand that my vulnerability, my willingness to advocate for myself and others, to name what isn't working, is actually my superpower. This brings us to the heart of what makes Cecilia Holmes's work so revolutionary. She's not just documenting challenges facing Black women in the workforce, she's illuminating pathways toward both individual healing and collective transformation. The data is clear. Systemic barriers persist. The April 2025 job losses, the impact of DEI rollbacks, these aren't imagined obstacles. They're measurable realities that demand policy solutions and institutional accountability. But Cecilia's research also reveals that while we work toward those structural changes, Black women aren't waiting for permission to thrive. They're creating new definitions of success that honor both ambition and well being, both excellence and authenticity. As Cecilia so powerfully stated, the most revolutionary act isn't just breaking the glass ceiling, it's questioning whether the building itself is worth occupying and having the courage to construct something better. This isn't about lowering standards or expectations, quite the opposite. It's about raising them, demanding workplaces and economies that value Black women's contributions without requiring the sacrifice of their health, joy, or cultural identity. So, where do we go from here? The revolution Cecilia Holmes describes isn't waiting for us in some distant future. It's happening now in the choices we make daily about how we define success, how we treat ourselves and others, and how we build systems that honor our full humanity. I challenge you today. What would change in your life if you embraced radical softness as strategy? How might you support the Black women in your organization, community, or family in claiming both their professional power and their right to wholeness? What systems are you participating in that demand armor rather than authenticity? And how might you begin to transform them? The quiet revolution isn't just about Black women's liberation, though that alone would be reason enough to join it. It's about creating a world where none of us have to choose between our professional contributions and our personal well being, where success is measured not just in achievements, but in sustainability, where power comes not from domination, but from authentic connection. As Maya Angelou reminded us, I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. The wisdom Cecilia Holmes has uncovered doesn't stand alone. It emerges from generations of Black women who have found ways to thrive despite systems designed for their exclusion. Their resilience isn't just inspiring, it's instructive. It shows us all a better way forward. The time has come to redefine power itself, not as something to be seized through exhaustion and sacrifice, but as something to be cultivated through radical authenticity communal care, and the revolutionary act of honoring our own wholeness. The quiet revolution is calling. Will you answer